And with a new cast, it could be that way. It could have new ideas and so on. The whole group could say, as they say today, it's our Star Trek. And you desperately need that.
Gene Roddenberry was a television and film producer responsible for creating the Star Trek franchise and almost 50 years of fandom. He single-handedly kept the franchise alive during its fragile beginnings and was directly responsible for making Trek what it is today. His personal ideas about a peaceful, hopeful, and bright future, where all of humanity has come together for the greater good, has inspired millions of fans throughout the years. But Gene's legacy doesn't just end with his credit as being the creator of Star Trek. He is now widely used as a debate line in almost every discussion surrounding Discovery, and for the most part, the Kelvin timeline. Why? Because some fans believe Gene's golden standard for what Star Trek should be is being ignored by the creative team and the studio behind Star Trek Discovery. They also wholeheartedly believe that Gene Roddenberry would never approve of what his beloved TV show has turned into. So today, I want to deconstruct that assumption in an attempt to answer a simple question. Has Gene Roddenberry's vision for Star Trek been betrayed by the studio or the fans? This is Ketwalski. Now, I cannot stress this point enough. This video isn't here to say if Discovery is good or bad. It's simply trying to decide whether Gene Roddenberry would approve of it based off of his golden standards for Star Trek. Additionally, because of the behind-the-scenes drama between Gene and the studios, I will be limiting this discussion to the original series, the motion picture, and Discovery. Gene had the most creative control over the franchise during its beginnings, so it's only fair to use these productions as examples of his golden standards when comparing things to Discovery. I know Gene had input during the early years of TNG, and most of the original cast films, but all of those were heavily influenced by third-party creative teams, so I'm not going to include them. So, with the amount of action, tension, and lack of teamwork, there seems to indicate a betrayal of Gene's vision on behalf of the studio. However, my gut is telling me that there's more to this situation because there are very few things in this world that have an absolute right and an absolute wrong. So, in order to really challenge this question to the fullest, we are going to have to cut a bit deeper.
Beautiful day.
After spending countless hours poring through the comments made on my Discovery-related videos, I have averaged out the top 5 supporting reasons fans list for CBS being the betrayer. 1 is the show is too violent. 2, it ignores canon and continuity. 3, there's a huge lack of teamwork. 4, there are no strange new worlds. And 5, a social justice warrior agenda. Now, I want to break each of these supporting topics down to see who is really in the wrong here, CBS or the fans. So let's talk violence. From a visual standpoint, it would appear as though Discovery has warped past TOS and the motion picture in terms of action seen on screen. Gene's brand of action looked more like this, while Discovery looks more like this. But let's validate this claim looking at the facts. According to several sources, the total on-screen death count in the original series is somewhere between 57 to 61 Starfleet personnel. Additionally, the motion picture has a confirmed death count of 9 Starfleet personnel, along with an unknown number of deaths at Epsilon Station. The pilot episode and subsequent war storyline for Discovery puts the total death count into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Additionally, we see characters getting stabbed in the heart, having their necks broken, and being sucked out into space. And to keep in congruence with FCC TV parent guidelines, CBS and Netflix have Discovery rated as TV MAV for sex, nudity, violence, profanity, and alcohol with drug use. Compare that to TOS, which was rated TV PG, and the motion picture, which was rated PG by the MPAA. So that encompasses everything we see on screen as the viewer, but what did Gene think about violence personally? Well, he regularly pushed his pacifist ideals regarding Star Trek even as far back as the original TV pitch document sent to CBS, Paramount, and Norway Productions. He also definitively stated in a 1991 interview with the LA Times that, quote, "It has become a crusade of mine to demonstrate that TV need not be violent to be exciting. I wanted to send a message to the television industry that excitement is not made of car chases." Based off of this information, it would seem that CBS appears to be the betrayer in this instance. I believe any fan claiming Discovery is too focused on action and violence would be completely supported by Gene if he were alive today. So you'd have to either be a brand new Star Trek fan or someone in complete denial not to see that canon and continuity is being ignored by Discovery. From the technology, the war plot, spore drive, to the Klingons, it is clear as day in every episode that the creative team is doing their own thing. So the only point in contention here is whether or not Gene cared at all about canon and continuity for Star Trek. And just to be clear, canon is the definitive statement of how a franchise works, while continuity is the degree of which events in one episode affect subsequent episodes. The original series was the canon foundation for the rest of the franchise, and through it, Gene laid out a lot of standards for Star Trek. And yes, there were many technical errors on the show, some minor while others being very major, but overall continuity was maintained. So how well did Gene translate Star Trek TOS into the motion picture? Well, excluding the various technical and filmmaking oddities seen on screen, I believe the two biggest canon changes are the Klingons being completely redone by makeup artist Fred Phillips, and that Vulcan has at least 2 moons, even though Spock originally mentioned that Vulcan had none. So those are on-screen examples of Gene changing things up. But what did he say about this concept off-screen? Well, according to a 1991 interview with Richard Arnold, Gene was, quote, "something of a revisionist who regularly had a habit of decanonizing things, including the animated series, several films, and even the original series. When confronted with issues between TNG and TOS, Gene said he didn't think that way anymore, and that he now thought of TNG as canon wherever there was a conflict between the two shows." Additionally, after fans attempted to create a Roddenberry-approved list of Trek canon, Gene came out against this in 2 separate interviews. One with the Star Trek saga saying, quote, "I would hope that there are bright young people growing up all the time who will bring to Star Trek levels and areas that were beyond me. It'll go on without any of us and get better and better and better, because that really is the human condition. It's to improve and improve." And in another interview in the LA Times saying, "There's a good chance that when I'm gone, others will come along and do so well that people will say, 'Oh, that Roddenberry, he was never this good.' But I will be pleased with that statement." It would seem, at least to me, that Gene wasn't interested in continuity or canon, and instead wanted to focus on the production that was right in front of him and how Star Trek would change throughout the years. Ignoring the different aspects of what previously appeared on Trek by CBS doesn't appear to be a betrayal of Gene's real vision, and the fans, I believe, are in the wrong for implying as such. The teamwork shown in TOS and the motion picture is so widely understood that I don't feel like I need to bring up examples to prove it. It's clear from everything seen on screen that the intent is to show how human beings have moved beyond petty arguments and seek instead to work together as a group towards a common goal. So how does Discovery stack up against this part of the golden standard? Well, not good. While there are more than a few examples of teamwork displayed on the show, they are overshadowed by its darker elements. Starfleet in Discovery is shown to be abrasive, rough, and almost a bit foreign to longtime Trek fans. We see the crew lie to each other, conduct experiments on sentient life forms, fake medical records, put each other in harm's way, and openly argue with one another. Putting aside the fact that Lorca was a mirror universe imposter, you still have a show whose crew's actions are not congruent with the behavior depicted in the original series and the motion picture. Now off-screen, the popularity of the TOS crew's chemistry was so powerful that it was used as a negative point against Gene Roddenberry when TNG was announced. In an article published in 1987 by Dave Thomas, he interviewed fans who said, quote, "The charm and success of TOS was the perfect mix of characters. It's the family of characters that made Star Trek what it was. You can't hit that again. While the concerns over TNG eventually proved to be unwarranted, it's important to understand Star Trek fans worried about the crew's on-screen chemistry over 30 years ago in the same way that we do now. Additionally, Gene was quoted in a 1989 LA Times interview saying, quote, "We stress humanity, and this is done at a considerable cost. We can't have a lot of dramatics on the show that other people get away with. Promiscuity, greed, jealousy, none of these have a place in Star Trek." I think it's safe to conclude, and I think most would agree, that CBS is the betrayer in this instance.
These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
To seek out strange new worlds and new civilizations. That was the foundation of not only the original series, but the entire franchise pitched by Gene back in 1964. Now within TOS, the crew visits or talks about an estimated 103 different planets, while Discovery visits 3 different planets and references an estimated 11 others throughout the season. To be fair towards Discovery though, the TOS numbers are for its entire broadcasting run, so let's break that number down further to just Season 1 of TOS. TOS Season 1 has an estimated 21 away missions to different planets, with a total number of new planets being visited at roughly 19. These figures may not be 100% accurate because I'm basing this number off of my own admittedly shoddy memory, but they still dwarf the number of away missions and strange new worlds shown in Discovery, which still sits at 2 away missions and 3 planets respectively. Additionally, the original pitch for Star Trek written by Gene Roddenberry back in 1964 describes the show as a, quote, wagon train concept built around characters who travel to other worlds similar to our own and meet the action-adventure drama which becomes our story. Here again, I believe CBS to be the betrayer of Gene's golden standard by completely missing the mark about exploration altogether.
When I brought in a mixed ratio crew, both the network and Desilu Studios, which had it at that time, came in saying, "What are you doing? You're going to ruin us." And then when I insisted on it, then the advertisers came in, the agencies, and said, "If you show this black girl as an officer dealing with white people on that basis, you're going to be barraged with hate letters, and whole areas of the country are going to refuse to handle your show." And we often forget that's how the country was then. One thing that makes me love viewers and love the audience is that we never received in 20 years one single letter of that kind.
The social justice warrior agenda. This is the most commented complaint I have come across on videos about Star Trek Discovery. The issue is simple. In order to capitalize on a renewed wave of social equality, major production studios appear to be sacrificing storylines, characters, and in some cases established canon to appear more progressive and hip to a younger, trendier audience. When done well, a social equality undertone in a story can help uplift a film or television show to a new level. When done poorly, however, it will often lead to an enormous backlash against the production, cast members, and the studio. So where does Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry fit into this spectrum? First, let me read you these YouTube comments so you know what kind of arguments are being made here. Before the bigots rush in to damn it or the liberals to praise it, it should be pointed out that Shatner reluctantly kissed Nichelle Nichols, and in doing so almost completely doomed the rather low-rated and bad show that was Star Trek. If Star Trek will not back off social issues and commentary, and if the characters are strong and believable, then it stands a better than even chance of succeeding. While it's great that black actors and actresses are not only getting more parts in TV, but better ones, it's important to remember that there is still plenty of room for improvement. Guess what? Those weren't YouTube comments. Those were excerpts from 3 different articles from the 1960s and 70s about Star Trek. But the fact that you might have thought for a moment that these were modern-day complaints about Star Trek just goes to show that we are all reliving our past as a society in some regards. Gene Roddenberry specifically wanted an Asian man, a Russian man, and a black woman working alongside their white castmates to represent his unified vision of the future. He was about inclusion for Star Trek and didn't mind pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable on screen at the time. Saying that CBS has ruined Star Trek because it decided to have more diversity hires isn't a fair statement. But neither is saying Gene would approve of Discovery's casting choices outright. The answer is more nuanced than that. Read articles with Gene and listen to his conversations and interviews, and you will see that for yourself. I feel his sentiments regarding Star Trek's role in social commentary are best summed up from a 1966 Herald TV article which says, quote, "If Star Trek will not back off social issues and commentary, and if its characters are strong and believable, then the series will prevail." The key here being a mixture of the two. You can't have one side of the scale tip so far over that it outweighs the other. I believe CBS and Discovery have got the social commentary piece down. Now, they need to get the strong and believable characters. Once that happens, I believe that fans will grow to appreciate and potentially even love Discovery as much as any other Star Trek TV show. My final thoughts are this. CBS, overall, has betrayed Gene's original golden standard for Star Trek. It's too violent, missed the mark with the social commentary, there's no teamwork, and there's no exploration. However, this doesn't mean Discovery is inherently bad. I do believe that this show is a product of modern television, and the times we currently live in. I also think, in a lot of ways, it's a continuation of new tones and ideas that were originally explored in Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise's Season 3. To say that Gene Roddenberry wouldn't approve of Star Trek Discovery in its current state is a valid argument. But to say it's not Star Trek because of that would be unfair. If you only use Gene's golden standard as your approval authority, then you would have to exclude dozens of episodes of Star Trek and almost every film in the franchise. Discovery has the potential to have strong characters and keep its social commentary message. I believe that it just needs time to find its footing, improve the writing, and let us as the fans fall in love with the series.
I just wanted to share with you something that may lift your spirits as it did mine those many years ago. All that nonsense about the dangers of mixed races living together on a spaceship or anywhere, and how some parts of our country were certain to refuse to televise Star Trek because we showed such things. The hatred that would supposedly flood our mail, turning sponsors against us. In all the years of Star Trek, we never received so much as one such letter. Not one. Humans are capable of so much more than we yet understand. We're really something. Star Trek fans believe that. And so do I. For us, no limits.